there were real women in blue. The story is based on them. And when they came to the set, they almost cried. I tried not to think about the fact that I'm the only woman in something. So they told me, hey, but you're a cinematographer. Isn't that really male dominated as well? And I was like, oh, you're right. Know that they're related to me in a way.
Hi, my name is Chad Anderson of Filmmaker U, filling in for Gordon Burkell. At Filmmaker U, we create courses for film professionals to deepen and diversify their skill set. You can learn more on filmmakeru.com or follow us on Instagram at @filmmaker_u. Every week, we are excited to interview a film professional, and this week, we are pleased to be joined by cinematographer Maria Sarasvati Herrera, who worked on episodes of Summer White, The Most Beautiful Flower, and most recently, the Apple TV series Women in Blue, or Las Azules. Welcome to the show, Maria. We are very excited to have you here. I first want to ask you about your introduction into cinematography, how you got started. I find that there's lots of different avenues and areas that people can get into in production and post-production. You chose photography or cinematography. What led in that direction?
I think still photography. I was since I was little, I was a fan of still photographers like Cartier-Bresson and Abbas. So I was really into it, and I also liked music. So when I didn't know what to study, I got into cinematography because I thought it was like a mixture of the two of them. No?
Interesting.
Mhm.
Yes, I've read that you have I've read that you use Cook lenses predominantly on this show, Woman in Blue.
Yeah.
Are there certain lenses that you like? If we can get a little bit nerdy in tech, are there certain?
Absolutely. That's
Yeah,
my
absolutely.
favorite thing. That's my
Yeah.
favorite thing of, I spend like months searching for each set of lenses just for each project. And I think my favorite lenses are Hawk or Panavision, the old
Sure.
Panavision lenses. I love them. But sometimes, that's not easy to get,
Mm-hmm.
especially here in Mexico. So now I'm using Kowa for my next project. And I also love Canon Kai 35.
I've been a camera person for 30 years and I fell in love with cinema. I heard there was free film school in France and I wanted to get into the French film school. I really didn't know anything at the time, but I knew at least how to take pictures. So I said, I'll try for the image department. And then when I miraculously got into the French film school, I fell in love with working with the camera. You're following what's going to be in the movie. So that immediacy that the camera allows is what I loved from the beginning. I'm Kirsten Johnson, and this is my course about documentary cinematography.
Are there certain focal lengths you kind of drift towards in terms of working? Like, do you start with a 35 or do you look at like wider lenses, or do you explore more?
I think I start with like 25, 20, 29, maybe the wider lens.
Yeah.
And then I feel what's next, no? Hmm.
What leads you to start with the wider?
Maybe maybe because that way I can feel the whole place, the space, and then I can reach out for like a more to be more selective in what I'm watching.
In the show, Women in Blue, it takes place in the 1970s, and so there is a need to adapt to that style, whether it be in the shooting, in the process, in the overall look of the show. Were there decisions that went into your head or into the process that made you choose certain ideas or certain angles or certain things in going into a 70s looking show?
Well, we were very eager to use the zooms. So we had two zooms, one in each camera. And yeah, I mean, we try to create tension through the zooms, like, in films like Munich from Spielberg, or even the 70s Kubrick movies. You know, we tried to use the zooms as much as possible, and then we used the Cook S4 uncoated that look also a little vintage for all the close-ups. You know, for all the characters in the show, especially women. Yeah, because Cook is really nice with skin.
Yeah,
you know, it's a very
it's generous.
Yeah, it's nice. So yeah, we used a lot of zooms. That was really exciting. Those zooms are also very big, are vintage, are ingenue, also from the 80s, I think. Mm-hmm.
Very cool. Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't, in watching the show, they do a lot of kind of 70s style, unique editing.
Yeah, I love that.
Training montage in the beginning scene of the multiple boxes and those kind of things. Was shooting it, was that considered at the time, or was that kind of an afterthought?
Of course. We had, you know, I had like reference of all the stills we've already shoot. So we could, you know, make a composition with all the squares they were planning to do in the editing. So that was really fun because, for example, when we had like phone calls, I had like one phone call in the other side. Like I had to make the composition look like, you know, the other one. So we could go together and make a nice shot. And also with many things that they use together, and also with the parallel editing.
Yeah.
Also with that, like we had to think about the other shot.
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Were there like visual aids that you had that like you referenced?
Yeah, I had all the stills from the other shots, and yeah, and I did that in my iPad. I made the division just to make sure it looked good.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. It's kind of fun as a throwback to have that kind of 70s style of, you know, that action crime drama kind of look of those multiple screens happening. And it gets really playful at some points of really like 30, 40 screens happening at the same time.
I know, and it really relaxes, you know, like watching that. For me, it's like, it's entertaining.
Yeah. It captures a kind of a mystique to that. In terms of that, for those kind of things, I was wondering when I was watching it, is that something that were there reshoots? Were reshoots necessary to go back and shoot it again, or shoot something else because the editing came back and said this didn't work right, or this had to work better?
I think there was, yeah. I mean, I wasn't able to be in those, but they were not from my episodes. They were from the end of the end episodes. But I think they were more related to the script, that they decided there were things that, you know, needed some additional shots or things like that.
Sure, you need to go in a different direction, and the script had to be kind of adapted.
Yeah, exactly. But I was, yeah, I mean, I know that there were, but I don't know how long it took. I was already in another project, so I couldn't be there.
Going from the transition, because you were basically working with the lead DP, Martinez Solares. And then episode 5 and 6 kind of became your own, and so you kind of took over from there. Is that a hard transition, or how smooth was that in terms of like knowing that you're ready to take that over and you have your own ideas in terms of doing that?
It wasn't hard at all, because Alejandro is really clear about, I mean, he tells us to be creative in our own way. He was like, don't ask me, don't worry, just do it, it's fine. He was very open about it. I mean, we had a manifest that we had to follow from the beginning, and we could add ideas to that manifest too. I mean, he took us into the projects from the beginning, so we were in the tests, in the mood and feel, in everything. We were there, and we also went to the set a couple of times, and I started doing second unit for Alejandro, so that helped a lot, because this second unit was very big. It was also like a main unit. So yeah, it wasn't hard at all. I mean, Alejandro is really easy to work with.
From, you know, the relationship between a director and DP, how much freedom were you given, or how much, you know, could you go in and say, hey, I think this is not working. We should move the camera over here, or we should go with close-ups instead of wide shots, or we should change the whole lighting design, or whatever it may be. How much freedom it was like hands off? I'm gonna let you work.
With the director I work with, Carlos Moreno, that was really easy because he's a very intuitive person. So when we felt like something didn't work, we were like, hey, I'm feeling something in my stomach. And we were like, let's change to long lenses. And he was like, yeah, you're right. And so we changed. It was really easy. I think with the showrunner, Fernando was a little different. I mean, he's really open to ideas, but he had a really clear idea of what he wanted all the time. So yeah, he was really clear, you know. He had worked in this project like, I don't know, maybe 2 years. So of course he had everything really super planned, and every time we were to shoot without him, we had like an audio of like a 5-minute audio message about what he thought about the scene that we were going to shoot. So yeah, of course, like, you know, each director is different, but I think I was really lucky with those two this time.
That's fantastic. So Fernando was kind of in your ear, even though he was not really there.
Yeah, no. Every morning, like 5 a.m. or anytime, I had an audio about what he felt the scene was about. Oh.
It's really great when a showrunner really has, you know, a vision of what they want to see and what they're there. You know, it almost feels like they're thinking about it in their sleep, and they're going over it again and again and again to get it just right.
No, yeah, he was a good leader. I think like there was never doubts about what we should do, and I think I really appreciate that.
Very cool, very cool. So you, I read that you worked with initially in the series about developing a LUT for a lot of the low light scenes and for darker scenes. Can you talk about that process a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, no, we developed a LUT for all scenes.
Sure.
And it was a really forced LUT. Like it was 3 steps or maybe 3.5 steps down in low lights and also in mid lights. So we only had to take care about highlight. But of course, that makes you use a lot of lighting, no? Yeah. Because you have to lead everything, otherwise you don't have anything. So yeah, it's a different way of lighting because you have to lead everywhere. You have to feel a lot, but at the end, that gives you a lot of control, and you kind of you will be able to do anything you want in post-production. Yeah. So it was a process of learning about it, and also because HDR, it's different. I mean, we couldn't be monitoring in HDR. Okay. Because that's complicated. And we had to use another monitor that uses like a reproduction of it, an interpretation of it. So we had to learn to interpret that also ourselves, no? That sometimes you have more information that
so you can see
you have. Yeah.
You can see the whole range.
Exactly.
What you potentially have. So a lot of times you don't find out till post-production, like, oh, I also have these in the highlights and I have this range in here. Yeah.
Exactly. No, we had to be monitoring raw as well.
Sure.
So yeah, but it was interesting, and I learned a lot from it, and now I use a lot like that almost in every project, except if I have like candles and I'm doing period, then I cannot go 3 steps down because I also use a polarizer always, and so that's a lot of steps down for me. But
I noticed in the series, you know, less so candles, a lot of car headlights. I'm seeing a lot of car headlights. They're really warm, and you know, it's almost, you know, a kind of a design idea to have this, you know, kind of criminal serial killer cop drama with these, you know, these moving subtle headlights that just you know, there's a lot of dark scenes that this just warms up the scenes in there. Were those real headlights, or were those added in as a separate idea?
No. Those were real. I mean, some of them were real from picture cars that were passing that we organized, and some of them were lights that we had in a dolly,
Yeah.
just to move it. But we were always, I did most of the car scenes in the show.
Yeah.
So I kind of became an expert in car scenes because I didn't want to look, I didn't want them to look all the same. So I had to make up like a lot of ideas about lighting, the scene from the 50s. I don't know if you remember where she fights with her sister and then the sister gets killed in a car accident.
Yeah.
So that took a long time for me to I mean, that there were a lot of lights in there.
Yeah.
It was really fun. But yeah, I mean, I had to like find out new ideas of just light car lighting, to make it look different each time.
Probably one of the smartest things I've ever done for my career. It gave me all the tools that I needed to be able to jump into a new career.
Getting myself into a mindset, thinking like an editor, being around people that I can talk to on that level was really invaluable to me.
A lot of the things that I learned from that class, I still think about.
I loved the classroom. I loved the computer stations. We built a sense of community.
And it also instills a lot of confidence in you to take that and go out into the world.
After I took the class, I felt very prepared to take the next step.
I owe Manhattan Workshop the career that I have right now.
Things have been going great, and I really have the Manhattan Workshop to thank for that.
A lot of these scenes are taking place at night. I noticed that there are definitely some daytime scenes in earlier episodes, but there's a lot of scenes that it's mostly evenings and nights. What are some of the challenges for you in shooting so much nighttime stuff?
I prefer nighttime stuff.
Really?
Yeah, because I have control.
Of course.
Like during the day, it's like you don't know if it's gonna be cloudy or I mean, I like interior lighting also, but I like to have control. And at night, it's like you have a black canvas, and you just have to decide where the lights go, and it's like going from zero.
The interesting thing I think about the show, one of the interesting things I think about the show is it is kind of a feminist story. It is women rising above and becoming, in this field where there's less women in the police force in the 1970s in that circumstance. So there is a sense of female empowerment. You were the sole female DP on this show. And so is there a correlation between that you feel in doing a show about female empowerment, being a female DP in an industry that is heavily male, that was for the longest time, male dominated.
Yeah.
Still, how does that feel for you to do a show like this?
Well, I think it was necessary for the show to have women, because I felt, for me, I felt related with them as a character. I mean, as characters, with the thing that they experience when they enter the police. For me, it was actually kind of the same. Still, when I get into a set, I get questioned. People have doubts. They ask, who is she? That's normal. It's less with time. It's less and less. And now that that I've done like bigger series, they ask me less. No, they wonder less. But it's still a thing. And when there were real women in blue.
Yeah.
The story is based on them. And when they came to the set, they're older now, they're like 60 or 70. They almost cried just to see the set. It was really amazing. And they asked me, because I didn't, sometimes I don't just ask about that. And I tried not to think about the fact that I'm the only woman in something. So they told me, hey, but you're a cinematographer. Yeah. Isn't that really hard as well? Isn't that really male dominated as well? And I was like, oh, you're right. No? So it was exciting for me to see them and know that they're related to me in a way. And I think this is necessary. I mean, we need to realize that we need to be supporting each other.
Yeah, I teach at a college in the U.S. and it's predominantly I teach in video, television, media, and we get a greater percentage of male students, and so when female students get into the program, they sometimes are intimidated by the fact that there's so many men in the program, and there's so many, and they're, you know, sometimes they're the one female in the class. And I've had students come to me and say, you know, do women do this? You know, are there women doing this? And I try to share with them examples of women editors and women set designers and women cinematographers, women directors. And yeah, there's representation there that needs to be seen, because they come in and they don't see it as much, you know, in big names. So it's really important. It's really, you know, you know, the existence of women doing these, you know, necessary and significant roles really changes how things, you know, progress, basically. It's really good, really important.
Absolutely. You know, here in Mexico now we have half and half in film schools. And thanks to, we made an organization like a few years ago, like maybe 7 years ago. It's called Apertura. And it's a women cinematographer organization. And thanks to that, now we have a lot of exposure.
That's great.
So when we started, we were 9. And now we are like 60.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that it's getting better. I mean, it's necessary to have a place to go, a place to show your work.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I never thought it would be so successful in that way.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Going from 9 to 60, you know.
Yeah.
There's you know, there needs to be a necessary space for these groups that aren't necessarily always welcome in these areas.
And thanks to that group, the AMC, which is the ASC from Mexico, the Mexican Society of Cinematographers, also got like a union together. So now they do everything together, and we have like our first like show, like awards. We have a show, we have a master classes together. We do everything together. So I think that went really well. Also, people from the AMC who wanted to change, no?
Very cool. Very cool. Very important. Are you excited? Tell me, we're not going to get into details because I haven't talked about it, but 100 Years of Solitude, you're excited about it and doing amazing work with it?
Of course. I mean, I'm very excited. We tried a lot of new methods in there. We had to improvise a lot. And we also had a lot of the scenes shoot in a studio, a very big studio. The whole house is in a studio. So yeah, I'm of course super excited to show it.
Good deal. I'm super excited to see it.
Mm-hmm. I don't know when it's coming out though.
Yeah. These things take time.
Yeah.
As a last question, I just want to ask a question we ask all of our guests. Do you have a guilty pleasure, something that you watch that's just fun and silly, not too serious, maybe a little embarrassing, or just maybe to kind of, you know, turn off your brain for a little bit and have some fun?
Oh, well, no, I'm not embarrassed about it at all. I mean, I watch a lot of things, like from every range. And I have to say that I absolutely love Parks and Rec.
Interesting.
Yeah. And sometimes when I just get home and I want to relax, and I've been shooting all very creative, you know, contemporary filmmaking scenes, whatever, I just want to watch Parks and Rec and laugh. And
yeah,
you know, it's so, yeah, it's very intelligent humor.
Yeah. And it's, you know, it even if you watch an episode, you know, 100 times, I still laugh at, you know, scenes.
Totally. And you can just jump between seasons. You don't have to watch it like linear.
Yeah, just scenes and just clips. Yeah. And it's good, especially if you have had a really serious day, a really hard day, really, you know, you're overworked. You just want to just, you know, be like, let me just relax a little bit, eat some snacks, and
No, of course. You know, during the pandemic, I just watched comedy. I had to.
Yeah.
No, I became a fan of stand-ups.
Oh, wow.
No, so yeah, I mean, it was necessary for the world to have comedy at that time.
It absolutely was. It absolutely was. Well, thank you so much, Maria. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you joining us today and all the insight and ideas that you had. That's going to be it for this week. You can check us out at filmmakeru.com or follow us on Instagram at filmmaker_you. I am Chad Anderson. Thank you so much again, Maria Sarasvati Herrera.
Thank
you
you
all for watching.